This is actually not my lab test. This is another company who will not be named because I'm not that kind of guy. But this isn't very good. This is the heavy metal content of their Shilajit tablets. Really cheap product and ridiculous amount of heavy metals in them. And this is my product. This is Panacea Shilajit, my best seller with my company. And this is my first video live since I moved. So I thought I would kick it off here with kind of a rebuttal to libelous claims that have been made against my company Mitolife, and I can't sue them, unfortunately, because there is no financial hit. In fact, I'm doing very well. Thanks to you guys and Mitolife Radio and the messages getting out there about the CLF protocol that I created. Not to say that it's the end-all be-all for health, but it's a great start. So I'm going to answer some questions here and give a little, I'll start with the Shilajit and then we'll jump into questions. But, every day, I'm out here getting the homestead set up. Been here at the new house, homestead version 2.0, with my woman for about 2 months now. And, I hop on Instagram maybe twice a day, and I'll see these messages from people, like comments on a post that's unrelated, saying, your vitamin E is toxic for this reason, or your Shilajit is toxic for this reason. And I think it's a lot of jealousy because I'm very transparent with the quality of my products. So I'll just get straight to the point. The people making these claims are actually selling a Shilajit that is multiple times. In fact, it has 10 times the amount of lead that my product has. And if I have to do the math here, it has probably, that'd be 100 times the arsenic that my product has. So, there's a reason why I sell this product, because it's a good product and it's clean. So let's get down to the proof, because everyone wants to see proof, right? So here is this company's Shilajit tablets, and it doesn't say the brand, so they could have stole this from anyone, but let's assume that they didn't steal it, because it would usually say their name right there. But here's the results. Toxic elements, which is, toxic is questionable, but toxic elements, milligrams per kilogram, not more than. And everyone's saying that my product is toxic, right? But this is their product that's making all these false libelous claims that I could sue them for. Lead, 0.90, arsenic, 1.3, cadmium, and mercury. All these are higher than mine. Now look at mine. Here we go. Here's my email. I'm gonna try to hide as much as I can here. Let me make sure. So there's me. This is my email. Okay. There's me. There's Matt Blackburn. This is my Hotmail. Okay. This is my main email. I'm gonna go over here to this lab, MSE Analytical Services. Hi Matt, please find the attached test results. Let's check this out. Okay, here we go. Concentration, 0.05, 0.05, 0.05, 0.13. Let's go back to another company's. 0.90 lead. Mine is, lead is PB, 0.13. That's a very small amount. And the mercury, cadmium, and arsenic is less than 0.05. Let's go back to this other company. Multiple times higher. You can see their lead is almost 10 times higher than mine. So no more libelous claims against Mitolife, because I'll come after you. But just wanted to kick it off with that. And also, there's a good article called Medicinal Uses of Lead. It was actually used by a Roman emperor Alchemists have used lead. And a lot of Shilajit sellers have probably never even heard of this book. I got it several years ago. It's called Shilajit in Perspective. And Gosol has actually a lot of published articles on Shilajit. And there's a fossil on top. There's actually an extinct animal called a nautilus. And a lot of extinct animals are found in Shilajit resin. That's part of why it's so special, is because you're getting compounds in here that we never get, right? Especially if you're counting on green juice to get your minerals, or green powders, as all of these deuterium people are recommending, right? Green leafy vegetables are lower in deuterium and ketogenic's better and all this stuff. You're actually going to get your minerals from Shilajit, and this is land-based minerals. So Kintone, that's being recommended as your ultimate mineral source, is not. That's ocean-based minerals, which is okay. And you're getting sodium chloride, which is good for aldosterone and stress reduction, for mitigating stress, you could say. But this is actually land-based minerals, and only a land plant, when the biogeochemical cycles are intact, can take a rock, an inorganic mineral, a positively charged metallic, and take a carbon, a negatively charged carbon, a carbanion, and attach that to a positively charged metallic and make it a battery, an organic mineral that you can use in your body. So when I get all these messages about, Shilajit, chlorinated water, Shilajit heavy metals, Shilajit this and that, fine, don't take it, but you're missing out on the red pill. It doesn't have to be my company. I'd recommend it because some of these other companies are toxic, like the one I showed you. But, try to find a clean source of Shilajit, and better yet, fly to Peru, fly to Siberia, fly to the Rocky Mountains and harvest it yourself. But you just want to purify it properly. You don't eat raw Shilajit because you will get sick. You have to actually extract it with hot water, and they talk about that in this book. There's different forms of extraction, and some people says there's better hot water extraction. Some people say the other. How do you test Shilajit? You basically just, like I did, email a random lab that does heavy metal testing, and you send them a sample, and you say, can you test this product for metals? And they'll do it. So this company's in Tucson, Arizona. I just found them on a Google search. They weren't recommended by anyone. And it's called MSE Analytical Services, LLC, in Tucson, Arizona. MSE Supplies is another name. The book is called Shilajit in Perspective. Very expensive. I think I paid about $130 for this book because some books are hard to get. But yeah, Shilajit, if you've never been on it, you really don't understand until you're on it. It's not like a supplement. It's not like an optional thing. It is foundational. And I've been on Shilajit for about 8 years. I used to make my raw chocolate with it. I would mix in Shilajit powder. I still use Shilajit powder in my coffee, and then I'll actually stack it with this. And in fact, let's do a little right here. They're gonna say I put another product in here, but this is my product. And then this is contaminated with lead, as I just showed you, it's not. I'm taking 5 of these, so I'm taking a gram of supposedly heavy metal contaminated Shilajit. So I think that's out of the way. I should probably do the math. I don't know what, let's see, arsenic 1.30 divided by 0.05. Yeah, 26 times the arsenic in this other product, these other Shilajit tablets. And then with lead, it's gonna be 0.90 divided by 0.13. Yeah, so about 7 times the lead in this other Shilajit tablet product. So enough of the libelous claims. I don't really have to defend my brand because people feel it. I take my own product. I'm not, I don't have lead poisoning. But yeah, moving on. I just had a interview with my friend Kitty Blomfield on our Win It Life podcast, and we did a show on Shilajit, and it was about half personal. She ended up asking me about my homestead and how my fiance and I are doing out here on the homestead version 2.0. And I was talking about bees for like 10 minutes. But there's a good 15 minutes of Shilajit talk where I think I shared information that I haven't shared before. I've been on a really deep like deuterium study, like DDW, deuterium depleted water, and all these like bougie LA podcasters and posers are making podcast episodes on deuterium depleted water and deuterium, and they've been doing that for about 2 years. It's been like an LA/Erewhon fad for about 2 years, and they're promoting all the usual stuff, zero sugar, keto, intermittent fasting, green powders, green juice, all the BS that we're always being fed. But there's some nuggets there. And although it's like very cringy for me to listen to a lot of podcasts, like Max Lugavere, it's just horrible, and some other ones, I forced my way through it just to listen to like, Robert Slovak, because he's an interesting character. He's funny, if anything. Don't agree with a lot of what he says about water filtration, but he makes an interesting point in one of the podcasts. I probably logged in the last week like 10 hours of listening to deuterium talk on podcasts and lectures, lectures where they're talking about cancer reduction with deuterium depleted water. It's a real thing. I don't think they could fudge the studies. If I was dealing with cancer, I would cure it, quote unquote, with deuterium depleted water. And if I have to spend $500 to $1,000 a month to do it, which would be extreme, and just if I had like stage 4 cancer, I would buy like 5 cases. I would get a freaking credit card, whatever, buy 5 cases of 5 parts per million deuterium depleted water, and that would be my only liquid that I drink. And if I make coffee, it would be with that, which is helpful for cancer if you didn't know. If I made my hydrogen gas infusion, it would be with that water. But there's something to the deuterium topic for sure, but they're spinning it a certain way, and they're spinning it to promote this alternative health message that has been shared for a very long time, which is take your vitamin D, supplement your omegas, take your green juice, take your green powders, go keto, skip breakfast, shorten your eating window. All that's BS. Because eventually, they talk a lot about the metabolism and how deuterium damages your metabolism and your energy production by breaking the spinning nanomotor, the ATPase. And it only takes one deuterium atom to do that, to break the spinning motor that makes your ATP. But there's a lot more to the story. And if you restrict carbohydrate or sugar, then your body will fail over time, because they always emphasize, these keto people like Robert Slovak and others, they always emphasize that you make more ATP with fat, with 1 mole of fat versus 1 mole of glucose. That's like their big thing. And they never tell you that with sugar, which is a better source of fuel, you make 50% more carbon dioxide. And with 50% more carbon dioxide, and you're using 50% less water at the same time, then that actually helps you sustain your metabolic rate, and you don't crash, versus running on empty like the song, and crashing like I did from doing OMAD. And I took it to the extreme, Dominic D'Agostino, Jason Fung, Dave Asprey, Mercola, every single person was saying it. And I'm like, if everyone's saying it, it must be true. And I almost died. From 1 hour eating window. Because if intermittent fasting is truly good, and autophagy, like they say, is truly good, like we want to force it, then I shouldn't have died from doing a 1 hour eating window, setting the timer on my phone to eat dinner. That should have worked, but it didn't. I got more and more stressed and I almost died from it. So that's a lot of my, content on Mitolife Radio. If you've never listened to my podcast, it gets boring to talk about food. So it's like a rife generator in the background. I like advanced stuff. I just get bored talking about like milk and honey and sugar and nutrition because there's way more to it. I personally think water is more important than food. Not to say, go breatharian and cut out food and just drink water, but there's a big like anti-water movement right now, and it's hilarious. Even the Slovak crew, which, I'm not bashing Slovak, I'm just kind of distilling like 10 hours of podcasts that I've been slamming the last week. That's why part of the reason why I've been so quiet. And, their message is, or a lot of people's message, what's his name? Laszlo Boros is the main deuterium guy. He says that you should make metabolic water. And if you drink water, then it decreases the metabolic water that you create. This is like a pro dry fasting recommendation. And dry fasting actually has killed quite a few people. If you look up, what's that raw vegan guy in Costa Rica, Robert Lockhart or something like that. He had a retreat and people died dry fasting. So, and I've seen it. I've seen people go on the, fruitarian thing, dry fasting, urine therapy. They all kind of go together and they just get gaunt. They get very like non-coherent. They get more into the quantum talk. You can't really have a real conversation with those people because it just gets esoteric very quickly. And they get bored with talking about physical stuff because they're losing their mind and they're just off in fairyland. And so they want to talk about fairyland, but they don't want to talk about being mineral deficient and where are you getting your minerals and how are you detoxing your excess iron and aluminum with Shilajit, right? Well, you should be. And if you're not, then what are you doing for iron overload? What are you doing for lipofuscin? Where's your ceruloplasmin coming in? Where's your bioavailable copper coming in? Right? Do you know your iron saturation percentage? This is not airy-fairy talk. This is brass tacks reality. This is real stuff. How much iron saturation percent do you have? Right? And going carnivore will just make it worse. Or going fruitarian will make it worse because your liver needs protein to load copper into the ceruloplasmin protein. So there we go. Let's see. I'm going to answer some questions here. Only one person used the little mechanism here. Can children age 4 use your supplements? He's using DHA daily for months, so thinking to get him off, just not sure. And I can't read the rest. Okay. For supplements or for kids too? Yes. I mean, I can't make medical recommendations, and kids' recommendations are sketchy legally, and so I could just say if I had children, they would be on the Mitolife supplements. And probably not high dose. I would say this would more be like the accelerator for their development. I'll put it to you this way. I've only met two children in my entire lifetime. I'm about to turn 34 years old. I can count on one hand the amount of children that I've met face to face, eye to eye, that actually exemplified to me what a human child should be. And I was in teaching for 5 years with kids, all ages. On average, age 10 to age 19 is the kids I worked with. Less than one hand, I'm 34 years old, just about. And somebody's home, right? I mean, if there's a reason to have children, that would be it to me. That's really depressing, and I think that's why we're in this situation. And you have parents raising their kids vegan, You have parents not supplementing their kids with the right supplements. You have parents supplementing their kids with the wrong supplements like D3. And just when you think about how tangled the web is, you can start to understand why you've never met, or maybe you have one or two children in your entire life that actually exemplified what a child should be. And by that I mean their eyes have a different look to them. Their awareness has a different feel to it. The way they verbalize things is different. The way they comprehend things. They're more aware. Have you ever, like, you've gone to somebody's house and you've seen their dog and it's just kind of jumping around. It doesn't really know what's going on. It's like just crazy and all over the place. And then you've seen, you know, maybe someone's dog where they're feeding it like raw meat or like it's biologically appropriate diet. And it's different, right? You've seen cats and dogs where they're just different. You're like, wow, this animal, you know, is more aware. And why aren't we thinking of that in terms of human children? It's wild. So that long rant to say this, no, it doesn't have to be my product, but Shilajit, clean Shilajit would be the big one, because none of us were raised on minerals. You know, I was raised on Honey Nut Cheerios, Lucky Charms, 2% milk, tofu, pasta, soups. Like, I didn't eat farm food growing up, and even if I did, you know, the minerals that the farmers are using, they're spraying like copper sulfate on the soil, and that's supposed to be cool. It's like, hello. You know, and I've talked about this with Morley Robbins on my podcast. It's like, you know, obviously we can be doing things better with farming. And, you know, to start, it's like, yeah, just, you know, a lot of people are getting into homesteading, but I think we could do it better. It's like, instead of giving our goats well water, we're giving our goats, you know, 7-stage filtered vortex magnesium bicarbonate rich water with no sulfuric and acids in it at all, and no hard minerals in it at all, no excess iron or calcium in it. And that's going into the goat milk, because water makes milk. People don't get that. It's like, oh, I'm going to get all my hydration from the Agenus Vonderplanus raw primal diet, all from raw meat, and I'm going to do, you know, after the repeating or whatever, then I'm going to do orange juice, coffee, and milk and get all my water from there. And I don't drink much water. It's like, wow, you don't know what water is. That's okay. You know, but you don't understand the process. It's like, water is in everything, right? And these plants and animals are not ultimate filters, easy Gerald Pollack fourth phase filters that like magically your celery juice is structured water. That's not how life works. The plants choose between life or death, and if it's choosing life, then it will suck up salt-based NPK fertilizer and it will bloat like a balloon to live. And it looks like celery, it tastes like celery, but gosh darn it, it's not celery. It's harmful. It's killing you. So again, fulvic acid used to be in the soil. The plants make it, but it's a certain pH, and acid rain's a certain pH. And if the acid rain overpowers the fulvic acid, or let's just say the plants are poisoned because they're using acidic fertilizer that kills the microbes in the soil, mutates them, wipes out the fungal hyphae, washes out the fulvic. Again, it's not like a supplement, you know, and this is out of stock. I'm just like making this like a Shilajit focused live. It's like a foundational thing, because we're used to get it in our food supply, and we don't anymore. And you could look up Justus von Liebig. You know, Matt's just making this up for sale. Look up Justus von Liebig. There's some books, and he was the guy that was studying minerals in plants, and he cooked plants down to ash, and he made the false assumption, the false conclusion that plants only contain 3 minerals: nitrogen, phosphate, potassium, NPK. And that was the basis of creating the fertilizer that went worldwide. But they also add calcium hydroxide to the soil. And so you have NPK, calcium hydroxide, and it's like a human being. You know, we can make it on magnesium, calcium, potassium, sodium, and chloride. We can make it. But how about copper? How about zinc, right? How about vanadium and indium and even molybdenum and all these other... There's actually a great section in this book that goes into the minerals of... Oh, and this is actually a great part too, if I could find it. Let's see. Dang it, I lost it. There's this is the best part of the book, actually. It talks about Shilajit for iron overload. And it's like a paragraph. And it's like, wait, what, a paragraph? What? This should be like the whole book. Effects on systemic iron overload. Shilajit. But Morley Robbins said it contains iron. What are you talking about, Matt? He like challenged me on this. Effects on systemic iron overload. It's like, whoa, when was this book written? This guy must know something, right? And it's only like 2 paragraphs of how Shilajit actually chelates excess iron. It's like, if that's the only effect of Shilajit, it's worth taking. I don't know about you, but I don't like sticking myself with needles. I've done it, you know, crazy biohacking days, procaine, hydrochloride, anti-aging cocktails, intramuscular. It's harsh, you know, and the skin doesn't really like getting poked. And, you know, if you go to LA, you'll notice that the biohacking, you know, thing is IV cocktails. You know, it's cool after a night of drinking when you're hungover. Oh, let's go get IV, you know, glutathione and a vitamin C push, right? A push, that's funny. And, you know, ozone IV. And it's all about, like, everyone's like needle obsessive. It's like heroin addicts or something in the health space. It's really strange. Not to say there's not a place for that, but unless you're on your deathbed, you know, even rectal ozone insufflation is 95% as effective as IV, as needle ozone. So it's like, why are we being so invasive? Why are we like forcing in ascorbic acid, which is making your iron overload worse because it's obliterating ceruloplasmin? So, you know, it's wild in the health world on all levels. People are losing it, especially people that own supplement companies. So, you know, I've felt really good backing off just because it's a breath of fresh air. But, you know, someone has to do it. If I just, you know, deleted this, which I kind of want to do, you know, it probably wouldn't do my business too good, but also, you know, there wouldn't be another person like some of my friends to counter the BS that is here on Instagram, especially the LA influencers, the San Diego influencers. Southern California is the worst. I don't know why. Just SoCal, the health space in Southern California is the worst, you know. And I could use the word retard and trigger some people, but let's just say mentally handicapped people are concentrated in Southern California. And, you know, if you're there, you know, right? And that's why I moved up here to North Idaho. Try to get away from the madness. You know, it's all 6-pack selfies and just ridiculous stuff. But anyway, let's get to some more questions. Yes, I'll post this live for sure. Let's see here. All right. Is Shilajit and fulvic the same or different? They're different. So fulvic acid you can buy, like that was my first introduction to Shilajit, was fulvic extract, which is a little harsh. I think in context it might have some benefit, but it's like a super extract, and there are some studies to show that it didn't affect the bones very well. That is to say, it harmed skeletal health of the rodents in the study, straight concentrated fulvic. So Shilajit contains fulvic acid. Some companies will add it like on top, like spike it, which is not good. That's like the carvacrol content in oregano, like these MLM oregano products or farm-raised, greenhouse-grown oregano versus wild oregano. The carvacrol content will be jacked up. That's the active ingredient in oregano. But in Shilajit, it's the same thing with the fulvic acid. You don't want like 25%. It's not like the more the better. You want natural fulvic acid content. And I want to do more lab studies with this. Like in the start of this live, I just destroyed another company, you know, with their lab study. So I want to do more to show that mine's really, really good and it's clean. I import this straight from Russia. I got in trouble with FedEx. They held my shipment for 4 months. This is like a labor of love to get this product to you guys. I'm working on logistics to make it easier, but it legitimately takes several weeks to ship this over, to import this from Russia to here. And they think it's a drug. You know, I've been, you know, warned and all that garbage. So it's worth it though. Let's see. What's your thoughts on Graves' disease, hyperthyroidism with autoimmunity? What would you do to fix it? So hyperthyroidism is really rare. It's like less than 1%. And usually it's misdiagnosed hypothyroidism. So I wouldn't get so caught up on the name like Graves' disease or autoimmune. Autoimmunity is just very simply nutrient deficiency. So, you know, you're probably deficient in retinol, you're probably deficient in copper, you probably had mineral imbalance. And the mineral imbalance is a tricky one. I really recommend, Josh Rubin has a really good YouTube channel. That's where I actually started with this whole metabolic study. Him and Jeannie greatly accelerated my learning because they distilled a lot of Ray Peat's information, and they're not just parroting, they're actually like building on it, and they disagree with some things, and that's how it should be. And East West Healing on YouTube, just to give them a shout out. But they recently put up a video on their YouTube channel on the Adrenal Cocktail. And it's basically coconut water, potassium bicarbonate, some salt, and orange juice, I believe. And it's amazing, you know, and you can get lost in the deuterium thing because, you know, orange juice is loaded with deuterium, coconut water is loaded with deuterium. If you're worried about it and you have like a disease, you're just a biohacker, then take a shot of 5 parts per million DDW, deuterium depleted water, if you're worried about it, right? If you're not, if you're just, you know, focusing on the big things, which to me is not deuterium, it's like a small but important thing, depends on where you want to go in life and, you know, longevity and goals and all that stuff. But a lot of people are just potassium deficient or magnesium deficient or salt deficient, you know, so you never know until you start adding these things in. And oftentimes, especially with magnesium and potassium, you'll have to get into like the 3-4 gram mark. You know, a lot of people just take puny doses of a couple 100 milligrams here and there of potassium, and they don't, it's just like counting protein or counting calories. You know, I hate counting stuff. I've never done it. I've never tracked anything because I'm a hard gainer, and so I can eat as much as I want unlimited all day long and I won't really gain weight. But I think, you know, if you're trying to gain weight, if you're trying to lose weight, on my podcast, actually, recent guest, what's his name, Jay, he was recommending to count your nutrients and do like a chronometer thing, because you might be under eating protein, you might be under eating carbs, and a lot of people are under eating or under consuming minerals. And so the cool thing about Shilajit is it makes it really easy to get them in. You don't really have to think about the trace minerals. You know, you can do some beef liver to get your retinol with your copper. I do the beef liver, oysters, and Shilajit combo, and you're really covered on copper. You know, if you add whole food C to that and you have 4 sources of copper right there, you're really set on copper. And then you just need to worry about everything else and, you know, make sure the milk's coming in and all that stuff. Do you mean 3 grams of elemental mag or just the supplements that are bound to? So actual magnesium, like you need 3 grams of actual magnesium. And some people do better with the transdermal. You just don't want to just rub it on the skin. You want to do, you know, a foot bath, and not just 10 minutes, like 40 minutes minimum, ideally an hour. And there's debate about that. You know, some people say like the skin has to start to shrivel before you're absorbing any magnesium from your bath at all. Some people say cold is better. Some people say hot bath is better. I think Adam, the contrarian, says that, you know, cold you absorb more. We're building a sensory deprivation float pool here. It's pretty much like a float tank, but just slightly bigger on the sides. And I think one of the biggest benefits to it, besides just the properties, the energetic properties, whatever, the overall properties of salt, which is just, that's why most people are obsessed with the beach and they want to live by the beach. I think it's the salt is the huge one. But I'm bringing that here to North Idaho, kind of bringing a mini ocean up here. And that magnesium, to me, is really priceless. And you save money on supplements, right? If you just soak in it, the magnesium chloride and sulfate. Yeah, make your own magnesium. I have you know, bulk supplements. You know, you can buy kilo bags, magnesium hydroxide. Very simple. You know, everyone makes it sound like rocket science, and then there's like a million videos. My friend Charles, Crucial 4, has a video on it. It's not rocket science. Don't be overwhelmed. You can't screw it up. You're probably going to add too much the first time. That's the only thing, but you still can't screw it up. So add less than you think to, you know, magnesium hydroxide to cooled carbonated water, shake it up, you know, over 30 minutes in the fridge, shake it a few times. Ideally leave it overnight. The bottle doesn't have to implode. Mine does. Probably the quality of the water. But yeah, make your own. I would say that's the best. Fatty liver disease, vitamin E would be the best thing. Is mineral water able to chelate iron? No. It'll actually make it worse. So iron will actually complex with aluminum and excess estrogen and polyunsaturated fat, oxidized products like omega-3 products, and form lipofuscin. But that aluminum part, a lot of mineral water and spring water has a lot of aluminum in it. And people don't realize these heavy metals are everywhere. You know, you eat a cheeseburger, you're getting an aluminum hit. You're breathing air in the city, you're getting an aluminum hit. So it's, you know, partly we don't want to megadose these things, obviously, but we also want to have a strategy to get them out, to keep them moving through us. To me, that's fulvic acid. That's my biggest strategy, you know, for most of my health journey with the heavy metals, because everyone gets into all these chelation therapies and push-pull, you know, liposomal packs, $1,000 craziness, Chris Shade stuff, and it's like, why waste your money? You know, why go this like lab route when you could go a whole food supplement like Shilajit? How to chelate iron properly? You know, it's go slow. You know, I always tell people, if you take Shilajit, don't take 5 off the bat, because it's gonna remove some metals, and those metals will float around. If they can't be excreted fast enough, you can get a headache, you can feel nauseous, you know, you can have a reaction. So start with 1 or 2 tablets, see how you feel, up your water intake. It'll be back Monday, actually, so probably around 11 a.m. or noon Pacific Standard Time. But yeah, with iron, you know, when we talk about chelating iron, we're talking about the RES system. It's called the reticuloendothelial system. And that's a fancy way of saying iron recycling system, iron recycling program. And a lot of people don't know this, especially people that are supplementing iron or drinking green juice or taking green powders, period, that's full of iron. They don't know that we only require 1 milligram per day orally. The rest, I think it's like 24 milligrams, is recycled in that system. And the problem is the doorway in and the doorway out in our cell for iron gets closed. And that's when it gets trapped. And that's when your lab results show, whatever it is, high ferritin, low ferritin, depending on your retinol status, your copper status, your magnesium status. Multiple factors will affect how your iron panel looks. And I don't think you have to get like obsessive over it. Maybe it's worth working with a practitioner to figure out, why your results are skewed the way that they are, whether high or low ferritin, because both can mean that you have iron overload. It's not just one. But bioavailable copper, that's the big one for regulating iron. And that's what allows ferroportin to open, the iron doorway. That's what allows the front and the back door to open. It's bioavailable copper. And for that, beef liver is useful, butter is useful, milk is useful, anything with retinol or vitamin A, because you need that not only for thyroid hormone production and conversion, but also for regulating iron. So, cooking oil, just more saturated. If you're going to use avocado or olive oil, just add it after you cook your food. If you're having like the carrot salad or whatever, then add the olive oil. It doesn't matter when you add it because it's not cooked. But if you're cooking on a pan, high heat, people say smoke point and they have all these arguments. It really comes down to the fatty acid composition of the fat that you're cooking in. And there's nothing that's like 100% PUFA. Even like canola oil, like you see at Costco, or the one that I bought that for our bees. Just so you know, 'cause some people are like, why did you buy that canola oil? We bought beehives that have this really cool mechanism on the legs, where on my old hives I had ants invade and they screwed up the entire frame, all the frames. So with the beehives we have outside, there's little like cups, and I poured canola oil in them because if it was water, it would just evaporate because it's been 100 degrees here for weeks or close to it. So I put canola oil in there, so when the ants climb up, they can't get past the canola oil barrier and get up to the honey and the bees. So that's the backstory on why I bought canola oil. But it's also good to grease your machines in. I learned that from a guy working on my house. He said instead of buying petroleum-based, lubrication for your devices at home, buy canola oil. It's definitely cleaner than petroleum-based lubricant for your machines. Actually, I have a pretty cool chainsaw on the way. Looking forward to knocking down a lot of trees here. So we have some that are fairly close to the house, and that could be a fire danger. And there's a lot of dead trees, so be fun to mess with my steel chainsaw up here. That's the best brand if you're going to buy one. Copper tongue scraper is good. I think it's great, especially if you're dealing with fungal infections, or if you just seem to always have a coating on your tongue. If you're just getting into health, I think if you're just getting into health, a lot of things can be beneficial. Like coffee enemas get a bad rap. I did one a day for like 6 months several years ago, and I think it did my body good, honestly. I didn't become reliant on it after I stopped. I just resumed regular movements. There's so many protocols out there that you can do. There's like castor oil packs and coffee enemas and ear candling, and there's mouth taping, and try all of it, right? Try it all at once if you want. But it's useful because a lot of this stuff can kickstart your health journey. And that's kind of how I'm viewing deuterium depleted water. $200, for, ×2 for a month for a case that you dilute your water with deuterium depleted water. That's ridiculous. Well, it's not if it's a cleanse. It might not be sustainable long term, but how about 1 or 2 months? Might be useful. That's kind of how I'm viewing it. And I don't want to keep harping on deuterium, but I just bought a second test. I went through Quicksilver to test the water, the spring water, after it went through my filtration, because my filtration shouldn't touch deuterium. But since we're in the mountains and since we're in a semi-north latitude, our water should be less than 150 parts per million deuterium, theoretically. I'm expecting the house water here to come back around 137, 138. I'd be surprised if it was higher. And usually your deuterium level is, your heavy hydrogen level is equal to your drinking water. So if you're fortunate to live in a mountainous region, on a spring, something like that, then it's probably lower and it will be equal to that. TRS is no good. Why? I have friends that like it. They have success with their clients. I don't do multi-level marketing. I have friends that do it, and God love them. I'm just not into it. I think there's better ways, like affiliate marketing, which is what I do. It's how I make a lot of my income, is just win-win, right? You want to buy a product, you use my discount code, you save. It's not a monthly subscription. And if it is, you can cancel it anytime, and it's not like you're locked in or it's this huge investment. Like one time I invested like $1,000 in a green powder MLM. And that was, I would say, before I fully decalcified my brain. And it was a good learning lesson. But yeah, instead of zeolites, I would rather use Shilajit. I think it works a lot better. Maybe if I was vaccinated or something, I might want to combine nano zeolite with Shilajit and experiment or something. But I would just say this is much safer to use if I was vaccinated. Is Oyster safe to take during pregnancy? Yep, it's a food-based supplement, so consult your doc and blah blah blah. But we would take it in that situation. Does the vortexing you did on the gallons back in 2014 work? It worked. Yeah, it was just some manual. I had to get that coupler. It was a metal coupler. It was kind of a pain in the butt because you had to unscrew it every time. Georgie's website, you have to Google Idea Labs DC. Just Google that. And you can't go direct to it, is my understanding. There's 2 pages that'll show up as a sub page. So if you click each one, it'll pull you to it. And there's no info on any of his products. He does that for liability's sake, to protect his butt. But yeah, he has some good stuff. I used the topical thyroid for a while. Now I experiment with Cytomel here and there, which is a little hard to get. If you're in San Diego or LA, you can go down to Tijuana and buy some. It's pretty easy. Otherwise, you have to find a Mexican website, which I shared actually on my Mitolife Academy page. I'm going to do a whole video about it. It's just something that I don't want to talk about publicly because you can mess yourself up with thyroid supplementation. But I like what Keith Littlewood said on my podcast about it. Can be useful. Ringing in ears, I would say magnesium. Really up the magnesium. Tinnitus is generally magnesium deficiency. The book is, let me see if I can find it. Book. It's not coming up. Let me see. Here it is. It's called The Chemical Gatekeeper. Yeah, Justice von Liebig, The Chemical Gatekeeper. It's $67 on Amazon. You'd probably find it somewhere else. But it's this book. It's a pretty hard read, I would say, you know, if you're really skeptical about the NPK thing or whatever, then it's probably good, or you just want to see the history of our food and what happened. You know, it's not the glyphosate and everything else that is focused on, it's really the NPK. You know, and that's what Slovak and others will never talk about because they just don't get it. And it's so foundational. If you miss the NPK fertilizer piece, you miss a huge part of getting balanced again. Let's see, Z Library, appreciate it. Yeah, my friend Lauren told me about a site that's better than Amazon too. I just lost it though. Z Library. Oh, so for free. That's cool. z-lib.org. You can get free ebooks. That's pretty cool. Okay. Does a PEMF help Shilajit? I don't know what that means. PEMF is pretty cool for tumors and stuff. Would you put Shilajit in plant souls? Not sure what that means either. I don't think using Shilajit on the soil is necessary. You know, indigenous microorganisms, rock dust, and worm castings. I think that's really all you need, and then just filtered water. But the worm castings will release fulvic. I learned that from pretty smart gardeners. What should I send my friends when introducing them to your podcast? I can never decide what episode might give them. I would just go by the name and see, you know, if they're anti-sugar, send them a sugar podcast. You know, if they're, you know, taking fish oil, send them the PUFA podcast. Something to challenge their belief system based on what they're doing would be useful. Or if they're dealing with a health condition, you know, the hyperbaric. I just did my first session in like a couple months yesterday. I felt really good. And it's really interesting. I've been like looking at these therapies, these oxygen therapies again, like I have now. Like I bought an ozone machine, cold plasma, from my friend Charles, and I've been doing insufflations with it just as a protocol that he recommended for chronic infection, which I think we all have, even before COVID. I think everyone has a chronic infection. And that's contrary to what you'll hear, you know, infections don't exist and, you know, the viruses don't exist and all this. I think people are getting extreme with that. I like the work of Dr. Cass Ingram and his work on mold, toxicity, and, you know, bacteria infections, viral infections. And these things are real. And, you know, I think people go to the wrong things to help them. Parasitic infections are real. So, you know, Shen Blossom just released these capsules that are really cool called Niniku capsules or something. You take them like 2 to 3 days on an empty stomach. It's like a blood and lymphatic cleanser. So just intelligent things like this and intelligent combinations, I think, are useful. The Body Shape Diet by Cass Ingram is probably my favorite. But I think he has the Infection Connection too. It's another one. Arthritis, going to be magnesium and vitamin K2. Yeah, I was against ozone therapy. I'm learning there's different types of peroxides, even lipid peroxides that can be beneficial short term. But I think it's all context. And I think if you have sufficient copper, because you're taking Shilajit and you're on beef liver and oysters and whole food vitamin C, a lot of people doing these oxygen ozone therapies, yeah, they haven't detoxed from iron overload yet, exactly. And, you know, it takes years to do probably, and you have to quantify it with a test, but at least being on it, because a lot of these like biohackers and stuff, they'll just go and get IV ozone and just, or do it themselves with a butterfly needle and just inject their blood with ozone. And that's insane. And I think it does a lot more harm than good. You know, it's O3, it's unstable oxygen, and it's a very reactive molecule that will react with iron, and, you know, iron is very reactive to oxygen. You know, they don't play well together. But if you have copper, then you can handle it. Same thing with hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Generally with hyperbaric, it's ambient oxygen, but it's increased pressure, and so the oxygen can diffuse like 4 times further into the tissue. And just imagine if you have ceruloplasmin, if you could utilize the oxygen, then it's good. And what my friend Charles has been telling me about ozone is it actually increases your ability to utilize oxygen, which is a new concept to me. So I've been kind of looking into that. But I definitely think you need, ceruloplasmin to make that work. Best way to take Shilajit, just consume straight. I pop 5 tablets with like my coffee or water. Mold toxicity, I would work with PJ Harlow. I had her on my podcast, listen to that show. It was way back then, but also wild oregano, I'm a big fan of. Sinuorega, snort it. Take the capsules. Oregaresp is amazing. That's probably one of my favorite formulas. Not the powdered one, but the gel cap one. Methylene blue, it's a tool. Again, this is an advanced thing. I'll probably make a Mitolife Academy video on it. If you want to do all the things, right, and what are your goals, right? If you had, like, methylene blue was originally used as an anti-malaria drug, and it actually is beneficial against COVID and other viral infections. So it's very antiviral, say that, and also just anti-pathogenic in general. And it's also a nootropic. I've taken methylene blue and felt euphoria many times, especially on a sunny day. We go to the water, getting sun, getting grounding, maybe getting a little bit of cold therapy in the water, snow melt, and feeling good. So it's, I believe it does help with dopamine. So it's good to recover from social media addiction. Just good for neurodegeneration in general. A lot of us have elderly relatives that are breaking down. It's almost like every year I hear of an elderly person breaking down with neurodegeneration and some type of brain issue. If you have any elderly relative, like a grandpa or grandma that's dealing with like Alzheimer's or dementia or memory loss, methylene blue, short and long term, actually, both. Methylene blue, and it's one of the easiest because they don't have to change their diet, they don't have to change their water. You just throw methylene blue at their brain and it helps the elderly. So for that is a very powerful tool, because an elderly person's not going to go on CLF unless they're a baller like grandpa on the CLF protocol. Shout out to that. The whole house water filter, I made a Academy video on that. There is one that I think I did put the link there. This was a custom built one, but I'm going to be recommending one soon. The price is going to be around 10 grand. So it's an investment. The one I showed in my Mitolife Academy was custom built. It was basically sediment, carbon, deionization, remineralization, ultraviolet, and then vortexing. And that's the whole step. Do not take methylene blue if you're on SSRI meds. Yeah, if you're on any medication, just stick with whole food stuff. Vitamin E, vitamin K2, beef liver. Once you start getting into like these powerful extract, whole food C is safe on any medication. Once you start getting into like these extracts like methylene blue, yeah, if you're on any medications, of course, it's good to beware and look into the contraindications. Let's see. If you can't afford a water revitalization system yet, what is the next best option? We have a well. So whole house filter is an investment, and it's a huge investment. And if you're off grid, it's an even bigger investment, because I thought, going from the old homestead to this homestead, it's like electricity didn't matter, right? It's like $200, $300 electric bill, who cares? Here, there's no electric bill because I am the electric company, because there's no power up here. We make our own power, but it takes a boatload of power to power the pumps. And there's a pump sending it to the house, and there's a pump that pumps it through the filtration to fill the water reservoir, which is about 100 gallons, the storage tank, so to speak, of product water. And that's about 2,000 watts, roughly, if both are running. Say we're showering, and it's shooting to the house and it's filling the reservoir simultaneously. That's about 2,000 watts. And that's quite a bit of power if you're familiar with power. And it's worth it, right? A lot of people are just on wells and springs that might be gravity fed. A lot of people still need pumps if they're on a well. Usually if you're on a spring, I didn't need one. But my plan is, if stuff hits the fan and, I can't get propane anymore, then I'm just shutting off all my biohacking stuff and maybe just using it in the summer when there's abundant sun and I can. But in the winter, if I didn't have propane, then I need to really reserve everything. Would you make a vitamin E not in coconut oil? I'm sensitive and bought yours and can't use it. Yeah, try a sunflower one. Sunflower-based vitamin E. That used to be my formula, but a lot of people didn't like that it was a PUFA, so I switched it. Holistic dentist on my podcast. Recommend one. I'm looking to have a teeth show. I threw it out to Adam Bergstrom, but he sounded like he wanted to talk more about mesmerism, like an esoteric thing, in the next show, which I think is cool. I've had a lot of weird experiences in my life I'd like to talk about with Adam especially, and hear his stories mostly. But yeah, if you know a good holistic dentist that would like to come on the show, let me know. I like to interview not well-known people. I don't really like big names because big names tend to be boring in my experience. Dr. Kathleen. Okay, I'll look into her. Holistic dentist. Yeah, I've been trying to listen to podcasts, but it's just they're always trying to get on these big names. And, all right, making a list here. Dentists. Yeah, most podcasts are boring. I'm sure you guys know that. Leonard. Okay, cool. I have 3 holistic dentists. Yeah, I'd prefer if they weren't anti-sugar, because I just feel like it's a very basic, sugar hurts the enamel, or sugar demineralizes the body. It's come on, let's graduate from elementary school. Can easy water be created by freezing water and thawing the ice out? Yeah, I understand you can. It's not easy water, but you're reducing the deuterium by maybe 2 or 3 parts per million. And we're not talking about dissolved minerals. We're talking about just deuterium. People keep sending me dentists. I'll look into all these. Whoever has the least following, I'm probably going to interview, because I don't like big names, as I said. Okay, EMF blocking phone cases, they work. Defender Shield is a good one. Okay, cool. I have 6 holistic dentists here. How to heal persistent rashes on CNS, CLF. Okay, that's the last holistic dentist I'll put out there. Red light and red light therapy. Some people say you don't have a red light deficiency, and it's kind of funny, but it's red light's not just working on a chemical level, it's working on a physics level. It's really changing the water in your blood and basically creating that gel-like water, that easy water. So near infrared, I think infrared specifically does it, but visible red as well, 660, 670 nanometers has huge benefit for rashes. Just a wide variety of conditions, red light therapy. I would just recommend staying away from big companies that have a huge marketing campaign and send free units to athletes and speakers, because these athletes and speakers and celebrities obviously don't have our best interest at heart. They're just spokespeople for free stuff that people send them. All the big biohacking tools that I've showed over the last maybe 6 months to a year that I paid full price. And a lot of these biohacker influencers just get free stuff sent to them, or they get a super discount. And I have stuff I've never talked about just because I'm still seeing if it's legitimate. And I spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on them. One, I'm into practical stuff, but two, I just don't want to promote stuff that is overpriced. So a good company is called Gemba Red, and Gemba Red was on my podcast. That's Andrew Latour. He has some great blog posts talking about the red light industry and what the measurements mean if you want to nerd out. But he's just a high integrity guy that creates affordable red light products. And if you're in another state or country like Australia, I think Kitty Blomfield recommends a company in Australia. So wherever you are on the globe, try to find a company that ships to you. There are a bunch of them. Just don't overpay. Yeah, like Ben Greenfield, every article ends with a sale. Yeah, I mean, everyone has to make money. I think I was very anti-money for years, and that's when I was the most broke, pissed off at the world, working minimum wage jobs, working 3 jobs at a time, and very stressed. So I think part of the game, it's physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual, but it's also financial. And the true test, if you're, and people will, this might irritate them, but the true test of seeing how much you've dissolved your calcification, your lipofuscin, your fibrosis, is how well you're doing financially. Not to say you have to be a millionaire or a billionaire, but just being able to think your way out of the rat race, right? Because that was a big frustration for me, being an Uber and Lyft driver and working at a cannabis dispensary, working my butt off, listening to podcasts while I'm driving for 10, 12 hours a day. It was very frustrating because I'm like, wow, I'm a fairly smart guy, but obviously something's wrong here if I'm still doing this, right? And my heart goes out to those people. I heard Dr. Cowan on a podcast talking about people not doing what they want to do, like cashiers, I think he might have referenced, and this is what I often notice, which is, they're just checked out. They have the gloss over their eyes. They don't want to be there. A robot could do their job, kind of thing. And that's not good for humanity. We need more farmers. We need more people producing food because we're a society of consumers. We're going to Costco, we're going to Ralph's and Vaughn's, and we're going to Whole Foods, and we're going to Starbucks. And how many people roast their own coffee beans? How many people are actually creating something of value? How many people are creating milk and eggs and cheese and actual celery, for example? Not medical medium BS, but actual celery stock. Nobody. Nobody's interested. They're growing it with tap water. They're growing it in a raised bed in the center of a city, exposed to acid rain, and they're pouring tap water on it. That's not cool. You're not really doing humanity good if you're doing that. So there's ways to advance the system and to basically increase the capacity, mental capacity of humanity. And it's by upgraded farming, and homesteading is kind of a trending thing right now. But I think what I'm really trying to emphasize is don't poison the animals with well water. Don't poison them with unfiltered well water or even spring water. We're on a spring with pretty low TDS, and we still filter it. Spring water is not ideal, guys. Mountain Valley water is not ideal. Spring water is full of acids, it's full of contaminants. and even bathing in it. People think, wow, bathing in spring water is your spring water coming through the faucets in the house, through the shower. Matt, you're living the dream. No, I'm only living the dream if that's filtered, because then I'm taking out the acids that eat brick walls, statues, eat your car, eat your bathtub, right? Rust. You can always make more money. You can never buy more time. Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, a big reason, I get a lot of messages about anxiety and depression. You really have to be doing what you love. And that's why, people see me smoking cigars and they see me like, I make my pineapple tequila drink or whatever. Health is so much more than the surface level. Like, people say like, wow, that's unhealthy, smoke or alcohol or whatever. And it's like, there's so much more. Like, you have to be enjoying life. Well, at the same time, I think building something that means something, which is like, to me, like a family and a strong family and a homestead. So how would we filter all that water? So it's called 20-inch canister, big blue filters. And, a lot of houses will just have a water softener. And that's okay, but that's like kindergarten. You really want to take out the acids. That's the big leagues. Because growing up in the health space, when I was going to meetup.com meditation groups, I can't tell you how many, channelings and meditations and energy things I went to. I spent years going to different people's houses in their living room, sitting there for hours learning about energy work and stuff that was probably BS for the most part. But I saw these people, and I remember this one house, they had a whole house water filtration system, and I was like, wow, they're on it. But I remember looking back, I remember, and it was just like 2 filters. It was like sediment and maybe carbon. And they were taking out some iron, and that was cool, but what about the acids? And were they remineralizing it? So there's definitely levels to water, and it's a do your best thing. People think I'm an elitist, but if you're bathing in tap, well, or spring water, you got work to do. That's my humble opinion. Very stupidly took the vaccine, and now my cycles are monstrous. How do I get this vaccine out of my body? Yeah, so, this is not medical advice. If I was in that situation, I would use Shilajit, and the basic stuff, right? Just make sure that your elimination channels are open. We set up an off-grid barrel sauna here, and I think I'm going to sell my electric sauna. It's just black panels that radiate out far infrared heat. It's cool, it's quick, but it uses power. But I sweat like twice as much in the wood-powered stone steam sauna, the Finnish barrel sauna. And so sweating is an excellent way to get out metals, especially if you're replacing it with good water. And I think that's actually a good deuterium depletion strategy, and iron, because you're not just sweating out metals, but you're sweating out deuterium, you're sweating out, we are sweating out a lot of salt. So you have to make sure to, up your salt intake while you're sweating. Even if it's chloride minerals, do your best kind of thing. I do the bi-ocean shots, maybe even salt tablets. But you release a lot through sweating, and even release some iron. So iron, heavy metals, maybe some radiation. Yeah, you release some beneficial minerals, but it's worth it. The cheap sauna is the one that you'll use. I would say just avoid the tent saunas on eBay that are cheap, that are silver, because those are just huge EMF boxes. So just plan to spend between like 500 and $1,000. Therasage is a pretty affordable tent sauna. That's the most affordable I've seen. I think it's like 700 or 800 bucks. Otherwise, yeah, find a gym. and just use one there. I used to sneak into gyms for free and use theirs. Thoughts on chromium? Shilajit. Yeah, I mean, chromium's a big one that people are deficient in. You know, boron, everyone's freaking out about, and boron's involved in your teeth and bones are not just calcium. There's this interrelationship, especially between vitamin D and boron. There's actually some notes I made. It was like boron, not so boring mineral, I think was the story. Let's see if I could find the nothing boring about boron. That was a pretty good study, 2015. And it talks about all the effects of boron on sex hormone regulation, vitamin D, magnesium absorption, arthritis benefits, anti-inflammatory effects. I used to take 20 mule team borax and just put a little bit of that in my water. That's kind of playing the element game. Maybe in an extreme situation, that's good. But, you know, I don't think you generally have to go to that extreme. Shilajit contains all minerals in the proper form, in the proper ratios. It's whole food. If you want to experiment with taking boron, you know, either a capsule or 20 mule team, try it, see if you have a benefit. I think the safer way to do boron is in a bath, like transdermal. Like if you're taking a magnesium bath, pour in 20 mule team borax into your bath. And how much? Maybe a cup. You know, you can kind of megadose it if you're doing transdermal, because your body will only absorb what it needs. Cure for Alzheimer's. If I had Alzheimer's, I would use Troscriptions Methylene Blue. Troscriptions is the brand I use. Vitamin E, vitamin K2, because calcification causes Alzheimer's partly. So vitamin K2-7 will take calcium out of the soft tissue and put it back into the bones. Those are the big ones, and Shilajit also for Alzheimer's. I think there's been studies on that. Yeah, definitely get a bath ball filter at least. Cuzin, C-U-Z-N, is a decent bath ball filter. You just want to be sure to replace it after so many baths. Neurological health, pretty much the CLF protocol that I wrote. Someone just starting out, you just want to do like 2 to 3. If you can handle 3 tablets a day, that's plenty. You don't even have to go over that if you don't want to. The studies that I've seen, actually quoted in the Kitty Blomfield podcast, it was this one. Clinical evaluation of purified Shilajit on testosterone levels in healthy volunteers. So 3 months, consecutive, 90 days, 250 milligrams twice a day. So that's 500 milligrams. Increased total testosterone, free testosterone, and DHEA, which some people supplement. And I've been experimenting with the cream, but you can make it yourself. And yes, women need testosterone too. And a lot of women are low in testosterone, and that'll cause issues. So, yeah, you know, if you can do 500 milligrams, that would be ideal. If you have sarcoidosis or magnesium baths, I think it's recommended for everything. You know, remember, it's not just 300 enzymes, it's 3,700. What did I do here? There we go. Okay, we're back. Lowering testosterone and raising progesterone. Pretty much eating metabolic, you know, raising progesterone is really a PUFA and sugar story. So if you lower your PUFA and make sure you're eating sufficient carbohydrates, then your progesterone should naturally go up. And there's a relationship between excess estrogen and progesterone. So they're on a seesaw. And it's not as simple as just supplementing progesterone. You could. I have a Mitolife Academy video on transdermal progesterone that I use. I think it's relatively safe from the research that I've seen on it, because it doesn't shut off your own production. It could actually increase your production of progesterone, your endogenous production. But yeah, PUFAs increase estrogen excessively. And so if you can counter the PUFAs, like vitamin E does that, sugar helps or carbohydrate. Let's see here. Okay. Is salmon roe healthy and safe? It's very high in polyunsaturated fats. I think it's a good source of minerals, but I think there are better sources of minerals. You know, if you enjoy it, I think whole food salmon roe, you know, once in a while isn't going to kill you. I wouldn't take the capsules like some companies are selling now. Acid reflux, sometimes increasing salt could help. You know, sodium chloride, whether tablets or the BioOcean shots on my website, because that will help create more stomach acid. You can experiment with magnesium bicarbonate and see if that helps as well. That has a balancing effect on the whole system, especially the digestive system with the bicarbonate ion. So I'd say try both. Try magnesium bicarbonate and try upping your salt. See if either of those help. Is vitamin K safe to start supplementing while pregnant? I would say yes, if that was me. Vitamin K2 specifically, because there's there's different forms of K. There's even like I think K8 and K9 in different forms, but the main forms are K1 and K2, and there are different isomers of K2. There's metaquinone 7 and metaquinone 4. And MK4 you get everywhere in animal foods. MK7 you get nowhere unless you're eating aged cheese and natto. And it's really the MK7 form of K2 that can do everything that MK4 can do and more. And so my Purely K product will be back probably in a week, I'm hoping. And I'm actually increasing the, I'm switching up the formula a little bit, so I'm going to keep that a secret until I do. But short answer is yes. See you, Ben. Ideal dosage of aspirin for inflammation due to 5G. I wouldn't use it for that. When I was taking aspirin, it was like 3 tablets a day, but you definitely want to make sure to be taking K2. How do we detox plastic? I think ozone's a great way to do it. Ozone will actually degrade plastic. That's probably one of my top 5 reasons for me doing ozone therapy. And I think a really safe way to do it is just drinking the ozonated water. Like I made some here. And this new machine, the cold plasma, that takes it from an oxygen tank versus ambient air, like the SOTA device. The SOTA device is great if that's all you got. Like if you don't have that much money and you want to drink ozonated water, then it's a very affordable and effective way to do it. It's way better than any Amazon cheap water ozonator. They all suck. If you're paying under like $300 for a water ozonator, it's a waste of money. But this one, we had to go to a welding shop and buy oxygen tanks. And so you're not creating any nitrogen contaminants from the air, because there's nitrogen in the air. So nitrosamines, I think they're called. So with pure oxygen, even welding oxygen, it's like 99.98% pure. And I ozonated this for like 20 minutes. It's very strong. It's almost too strong. But shouldn't have breathed that. If you do sauna therapy and drink ozonated water, like cold ozonated water, wow, what a combo. Like that is a great idea in my opinion. That ozone got me. Took a big whiff of that. We ever do consultations again? Possibly. Yeah, life's moving pretty fast. I don't have much time. There's constantly people here. doing work. The reason why I haven't been doing lives or stories or anything, partly to take a break and just live my life, but also I've just been focusing most of my energy to the podcast, Mitolife Radio, the YouTube channel, Mitolife Academy, and just keeping up with posts on here. It's been my main 3 focuses. So I haven't been doing pretty much anything beyond that. I would say just read my CLF protocol post, listen to the weekly podcast. I have a new one every Friday. Just drink some coffee to clear out this ozone here. Yeah, I'll do a little post. The ozonator is like $3,000, so, it's a therapy, but, if you have mold toxicity, I would do rectal ozone insufflations and wipe it out. For $3,000, you bet. It's just you have to find a welding store, get an ozone or a oxygen tank. But for any chronic infection, SIBO, a lot of people have intestinal infections. Even endotoxin, ozone eradicates endotoxin. So, best creamer for coffee, I would just do organic, heavy cream. What's the ozone doing to you? You're not supposed to breathe it because it irritates the lungs. But you could do vaginal, rectal, you could drink it, you can put it in the ears, you can put it in the eyes, you can put it up the nose. Sorry, you can't do the nose. You do everything except for like breathe it, just because it irritates the lungs. But it's really good if you have like a moldy room. Like we had some pretty catastrophic leaks, because when we moved the whole house water filter from the old house to this house, a couple of the fittings were plastic, and plastic fittings are cheap, and just a little kink created a leak. So we had to switch them to brass, but to switch them to brass, we had to learn there was a leak, and I went down there and it was just the floor was flooded. And so we saw some mold cropping up there, and so I have to run that generator in there and just blast it out. Did you slowly lower aspirin or just go cold turkey? I just went cold turkey and it's fine. I find aspirin's mostly beneficial for skin conditions. Like I know, eczema and acne. Those are 2 things that I grew up with. That was like why I got into health pretty much, with skin issues and brain fog. And it's a journey, because you think you're doing every single thing right and it's still there, right? And some people would say, oh, then it's emotional, right? And it's like you have to heal it emotionally. Maybe. There's definitely a component there to that, but I found when I went like raw vegan, I would still have it here and there. My skin would be mostly clear, but it would still crop up. And then I went like vegetarian, and then I went back to like, animal-based diet, and I tried all these different eating styles, and it would leave and come back. So I think that's where tools come in, like aspirin and methylene blue and niacinamide and vitamin E. These are the big ones, I think, for skin health that people overlook. Acetyl salicylic acid, you can make a face mask with aspirin. It's really beneficial. That niacinamide form of B3 is used in skincare products, and it works synergistically with vitamin E, especially against PUFAs, polyunsaturated fats. There's definitely a mineral component to skin too, so just getting your minerals balanced with Shilajit is really helpful. Let's see. Family friend has breast cancer. What tips can you give her? Yeah, I think I actually read a study the other day. Let me see if I could pull it up. Yeah, it was this one. No, I thought it was that one. I think it's this one. Yeah, So send her this study, or just check this out. Deuterium depleted water inhibits the proliferation of human breast cancer cell lines by inducing cell cycle arrest. So yeah, deuterium depleted water causes lethality in cancer cells. And some people say that's all it's good for, but Dr. Cowan has a lot of good info on that. But if I had breast cancer, I would definitely go on a deuterium depleted water thing. Even drinking like they did studies with dogs, finding just bringing it down to 130 ppm deuterium healed their cancer. So, you know, you don't have to drink the 5 or 10 parts per million deuterium depleted water. You can just dilute your water even 1-to-1. And that way it's more affordable, and it's affordable therapy. And you could bring your water down to like 80 to 100 or something like that. And that would be plenty. Nursing and Shilajit. This is a question I get often. If a woman has been on Shilajit for a while before conceiving, then it's safe. I would say in general, probably you don't want to take 5 tablets a day unless, you know, a woman's a rock star and she's been on Shilajit for years. Then it's probably fine. But you want to make sure, I mean, maybe you can get an HTMA, hair tissue mineral analysis test, and assess your heavy metals. But if the heavy metals are relatively low, then it's safer to, you know, you could say high dose the Shilajit. I think mineral deficiencies create a subpar baby. And of course there's, you know, there's vitamin E and vitamin K27 and retinol and copper. Those are like the big 4 for creating a healthy child. But if you add something in like Shilajit, you're just adding in like rocket fuel, and you're getting the boron, you know, the selenium, the copper, the zinc, all the trace minerals. I nurse and take 5, no issues. That's awesome. Okay. I think I'm about to wrap it up here. Stance on eggs, they're awesome. They're a superfood. They're packed with B complex, B vitamins that are hard to get. A lot of people that are stressed, that have anxiety or depression, are just B deficient, because B vitamins become deficient under stress. Let's see. How are you able to find such a clean Shilajit source? It took years. You know, I started with like Robert Cassar's powder. If you're an OG in the health community, you remember him, and Earth Shift products. I remember spending like hundreds on his site, like Superfoods website. And I'll get little like 2 ounces Shilajit powder. I started taking capsules from different companies. I started ordering it myself, tried all these different sources, and I came across these tablets, and I was like, wow, all I've seen are these. The resin jars are okay. Like if you're home, you're not going to take this out to a restaurant, right? Like this, I could throw, like I have a bag with me every time I leave the house. I have like my gun, my everyday carry stuff. But this is going with me with my gun, and it's Shilajit. And, you know, I'm going to make a video for the Academy, like when you go out to eat, to mitigate, because people worry about all the stuff that doesn't really matter, right? What you should really be focusing on to mitigate is the hard minerals in the food. And it does cause white blood cell increase, leukocytosis. That's Mayo Clinic stuff. So hard minerals in solution in your blood cause immune system freak out. So long story short, it took me years to find this. Is methylene blue good as a COVID 1984 preventative? Or would it work if someone caught it already? Dad just passed, mom almost died. I'm sorry to hear that. Yes, it's an amazing preventative. And also wild oregano. What is a hard mineral? Iron? So a hard mineral is a mineral that doesn't have a carbon attached to it. So you can call it like an inorganic mineral. It's like a rock. It's like go out to your driveway and just pick up a rock from the driveway and just eat it or swallow it. No, I'm not recommending this, but that would be, I mean, plants, that's what plants uptake, right? But they don't uptake that directly. There's a symphony breakdown, a song of alkaline and acidic bacteria, fungi, and fulvic acid. And those three are supposed to take a rock like in your driveway and break it down into a usable organic mineral that you can then get in a, say, dandelion greens or Swiss chard or whatever, and it's supposed to be a plant-based organic mineral. So that's the difference between like an organic and an inorganic mineral. Vitamin B, complex, complete supplements. You know, beef liver is pretty close. Organ meats are pretty close. Desiccated organ meat capsules. If you want to supplement straight B vitamins, I might make some videos on that in the future. I'm experimenting with like a B1. And most people freak out about what they're extracted from. I don't think it's that big of an issue. I think it's kind of a orthorexic kind of thought, because everyone wants everything to be perfect, right? Like this whole Shilajit thing, like I showed you the lab results, right? Like this is not a good report, right? Like that's really, really high compared to mine, right? Where this is mine and that's really low. But you're not going to find anything that's metal free. You're not going to find anything that, doesn't have contamination in it. And if you think you are, then you're living in a fantasy world, and I would say you're calcified. Where everything we see, hear, touch is pretty much poison, right? This phone's made of plastic, right? There's blue light coming from it. I put my hand in front of it and it's dehydrating my finger like a microwave oven, right? It's just a matter of being aware of these things. Let's see. So hard minerals cannot be utilized by the body. They create calcification. They can be utilized by the body. For example, calcium carbonate, like if you supplement that, if you have enough carbon dioxide, then you can actually break down that rock, and the body can do that to some degree, but it's stressful over time if it's chronic ingestion, especially just through the bathing water. And so the Shilajit kind of takes that burden off by you're bringing in fulvic acid once or twice a day, and that's really helping you break down the rocks in your food. Because as I said before, the biogeochemical cycles are messed up. So the plants are not filtering the water and making magical minerals. They're sucking up whatever they can: biosludge, tap water, acid rain, hard rocks. And what do you think? There's no microbes in the soil, there's no fungus, there's no fulvic. What's going to be in the plant? It's going to be rocks in there. By rocks, I mean non-carbon bonded minerals, hard minerals. And it's not just coming in through the mountain valley water. It's coming in through the food supply as well. This is the importance of Shilajit and why I've been on it for years. Yeah, stretch marks, I would use red light therapy and vitamin E. All right. There's a lot of questions I wasn't able to answer. I do monthly lives on the Mitolife Academy, and you have to be a member to ask questions. So yeah, utilize the podcast as a resource. I often go on rants. I get tired of hearing my own voice, which has been nice to take a break from social media. I'm tired of hearing myself talk. But at the end of every episode, I do a little rant of whatever I'm studying recently or whatever, and hopefully it's useful information to you. The last one was deuterium. The podcast episode coming up on the 16th, actually next Friday, is really good. It's with the light diet guy, Matt Maruka, and what's really cool is that him and I, we have similar backgrounds, but we have like almost opposite approaches to some degree. we're both focused on mitochondria, but he's actually experimenting with like a vegetarian diet, kind of going like breatharian direction a little bit, like eating less, caloric restriction, intermittent fasting. And I love talking to people like that. I love having conversations with people like that, especially on my podcast, because I think too often, people have said on Mitolife Radio, Matt, you only have pro-sugar people on, debate anti-sugar people. Okay, Matt Maruka, he's very anti-sugar. I just had him on. It's next Friday's episode. He thinks sugar is the devil. But then again, he's going to eat beans and rice and do the vegetarian thing. But him and I agree that, sunlight is an underrated form of nutrition, and that vitamin D is a really small aspect of it. It's actually a ridiculously small aspect of sun exposure, hormone D. It's insignificant, in fact. It's really the colors that you're after and the effect of the Roy G. Biv on your system and on the physics of your system. Really cool. And there's like neutrinos and there's all these other components of biophotonic light that is really powerful. And I even went into creating our own light. I brought up that subject in the podcast, and he said that's the ultimate goal. Because I was talking about one of my favorite things about the sensory deprivation float tank experience is that there's not one photon of light hitting my eyes or my skin, but yet I could still see light. How is that? And there's actually a study showing that our pineal gland actually has rods and cones in it. Like, our third eye, and I think people take this a little too far, but it's just biochemistry, that we literally have another eye that has rods and cones, and it does perceive light. And what light is it perceiving in a sensory deprivation float tank is the question. My answer to that is that it's perceiving the extreme low frequency ultraviolet light that our cells are using to communicate, and perhaps even the infrared light that our body's generating, which are supposed to be beyond human range, right? Like, we can't see invisible purple, we can't see infrared, but maybe this other gland can. It has rods and cones. So pretty cool stuff. That's why I really like having a podcast, because I would never hear that talked about on another podcast, to my knowledge. And yeah, Matt has good blue blocking glasses too. He uses synthetic melanin in the lens, which is pretty cool. I still have his really old pairs here. I think that's a missing aspect of health. If you're dealing with brain diseases, Alzheimer's especially, it's like that artificial light really rocks the brain, because anything that rocks the eyes rocks the brain, because it's direct route there. So vitamin D3 is rat poison. Absolutely. It's a good place to end it. To trigger some people. Nothing triggers people more than like bashing the supplements that they believe in. And I would just say, try not to get triggered by the supplements, that I'm bashing, because people will defend ascorbic acid to the death, fish oil, vitamin D3, zinc, get emotional, say it helped me so much. And great. Okay, I would just challenge you to say maybe it was placebo. I used to take my own algae oil and I thought it helped me, and maybe it did, but it was probably placebo. It probably wasn't the omega-3 DHA that I was drinking like a shot glass. So I'll try to do one of these maybe once a month. That's probably a healthy cadence. I'm just struggling to keep up with creating stuff. As I said, the Mitolife Radio is top priority, Mitolife Academy. And if you ask questions on the Academy, sorry if it takes me like a week to get back to you, but I promise I will. Last week I went through and caught up with I think 20 questions from a few months ago. We've been at the new house here about 2 months, and so it's just been, like I said, daily having people come over, working on home security, because there's people on Instagram trying to figure out where I live, sending me mail, just weird characters on the internet that are really vicious creatures, a lot of them religious people. So yeah, so I'll post this live. Panacea Shilajit is cleaner than other tablets on the market. Lab test I showed you. If if you missed it, go back and see the live. I show the lab test of Panacea. How's your girl? My fiance Mariah is amazing. She's a blessing, and really supportive to everything that I do. So yeah, it's all good. You know, keep stress low, and we all deal with creepers in our life. Just a matter of staying light, you know, and even you know, weird people online, you can just shut the thing off. You know, a lot of people get sucked into like online arguments and online drama. You know, there's a little button on the side of your phone. You can just switch the freaking thing off and go on a kayak, right? Or go swimming or go sunbathing. So I would just recommend my closing thoughts here. Don't get sucked into online debates, online arguments, online drama, gossip, all that BS. It's all a waste of time. Focus on what's real, face-to-face human interaction, people that are right in front of you. Prioritize face-to-face contact to virtual contact. And yeah, work on lowering your calcification, lipofuscin, and fibrosis. See you guys.